What's up, world? Welcome back to another episode of Just Grow It, the podcast. I'm your host, Big City Gardener, and today we're talking about what to plant in the month of June. Let's get to it. If you missed last month, let me give you a quick rundown. I'm no longer differentiating between planting early in the month or the middle of the month, and that's just because it's hot all month long. So there's no real temperature variation between early June and late June. Therefore, we just put it all together and talk about what to plant in the month of June. Now in June, we can still directly seed basil into our garden or plant basil transplants. You're starting to really understand why basil is one of my favorite herbs, because you can just throw seeds in the garden during the hottest time of the year, and as long as you keep them watered, they will still grow and produce. And they'll actually produce all the way until November, depending on when it gets cold in your area. If you're looking for a melon to plant in your garden, you can still add something like cantaloupe out there. Then we still are able to plant cucumbers, but just like last month, we can't plant all different varieties of cucumbers. I recommend only planting the Suyo Long variety. And that's just because of how well it's able to handle our hot and humid climate and still be extremely productive. Then we can plant okra. But if you already planted okra in May, then you may not need to add more okra to your garden. It really depends on how much you love okra. Now, I'm an okra fan, but I'm only gonna plant okra one of those months, and this year it happens to be this month in June. You can still plant things like southern peas, and this includes things like your black-eyed peas, or my personal favorite, the pigeon peas. If you're like me, and when the summertime comes around, you start to miss those fresh greens that we get during the cooler months of the year, don't worry, I have a summertime green for you to grow, and it's a green that you can still plant this month in June, and it is called Malabar spinach. Let me give you a disclaimer though. This thing will self-seed all throughout your garden. And the final thing that you can still plant are pumpkins. I'm gonna be adding some more pumpkins to my corn patch in a few days. One reason why I love growing the pumpkins or the melons in your corn patch is that they act as some sort of ground cover, helping to smother out the weeds and keep the soil temperatures cooler. Now, those were the best things to plant during this month. Here's a list of some suitable crops that you're still able to plant, but they may not perform as well as they would have had you planted them earlier. But it all depends on your microclimate. First, we have arugula. Second, lima beans. Third, yard long beans. Fourth, bitter melon. Fifth, corn. 6, eggplants. And 7, pepper transplants. And 8, I'll even add an 8, and that is you can still plant sweet potato slips as long as you get them in your garden early this month. Now what you start to notice is that this list gets smaller and smaller each month. And that's simply because there's not that many crops that can withstand our heat and humidity down here in zone 9B. So if you haven't started your garden as of yet, then I would recommend that maybe you hold off. Don't rush out and start planting a bunch of stuff. Maybe it's better to take a step back and plan for your fall garden. Because as you'll see next month in July, it's gonna be time to start getting ready to transition into our fall crops. But you'll have to check out next month's episode to know what exactly you can plant in July to get a head start for your fall garden. And that's it for this episode of Just Grow It, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Big City Gardener. First, I wanna say thank you for taking the time to check out these episodes. It really means a lot to me. But I do have one ask, and that is please share this episode with as many people as you possibly can. I have a goal of turning Just Grow It, the podcast into a top 10 gardening podcast, and you know I can only do that with your help. So leave me a 5-star rating, leave me a good review, leave me a bad review. Just be honest. Thank you for everything, and that's it for this episode. Now, I normally tell you, go outside, go to your favorite gardening store, get your hands in the dirt, all that good stuff. But this episode, I'm gonna tell you something different. Still want you to listen to this podcast while you grab a sheet of paper and start to write down what it is that you want to grow in your fall garden this year. Trust me, it'll help you next month. That's it. Until next time, don't forget to just grow it. Peace.